the goal is for you to create space to show up better. Show up a better version of yourself. Work on yourself a little bit every day, right? And then you'll show up better as you go along. But we're going to focus on one thing. That's all it starts with, is one thing, okay? If your self-care routine only works on your day off, then you and I need to talk, okay? Because no ma'am. All right, I'm Demita. I'm the host of Self-Care Revolution, and we are here for a weekly reset, okay? And I'm fresh out of my workout. No. I'm fresh out of my workout, and I wanted to get this video done because this is kind of how I start every week, all right? So we're going to meet here weekly, and when we meet here, we're going to be talking about something self-care, okay? I'm going to try to get in really quick, give you a quick tip that you can put into practice today, but the goal overall is to help you to focus more on you, because when you start focusing on yourself, everything else gets a little bit easier to deal with because you are okay. So we got to take ourselves off the back burner. And it's August, so that's like a perfect time because ironically, August is National Wellness Month. Go ahead and look it up. I had to look it up to see if it was for real. They got months for everything, right? But August is National Wellness Month. So we're going to definitely be all over that here at the Self-Care Revolution podcast, okay? So this theme, though, and this August, we're going to do themes for all of my episodes, or I won't say episodes, but every month I'll have a new theme because I am also going to be launching a community in the future, and that theme will be very important once we get into the community because the activities that we'll do and the things we talk about, the books we'll read, will be centered around the theme, okay? So this month's theme is back to you. It's mid-year, all right? We've got half the year that has already passed, and I want to know where you are with your self-care regimens. Do you have a self-care routine? Is it something that you engage in daily? Like, these are questions that I want you to answer at some point. You can get in the comments below, or you can DM me and tell me that as well. But today we're going to do a mid-year self-care audit, okay? Because sometimes we get stuck on autopilot. Like, we just get stuck in a reactionary mode when it comes to life, especially if you're like a caretaker, or if you're a mom or a grandma. That's like most of the people out here, right? So everybody should be able to benefit from this midweek audit on our self-care practices, because your only job for real, number one, is to stay in the present, because the past and the future are just concepts and illusions. They haven't happened yet, or either they already happened. All right, so we need to figure out what is it that we could do now, or not even that we could do now, but what do you need now as far as self-care, and then start there. All right, everybody's answer is going to be different because everybody's different. So you need to really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, what do you need? All right, especially before like life speeds up. The kids are going back to school. All right, so a lot of y'all's life is already sped up at this point. But that's why it's even more important that we take a little bit of time and kind of assess what your self-care situation is right now, okay? So like I said, this month's theme is back to you. Now, why is a weekly reset important? All right, a weekly reset is important because the week is going to come with a whole bunch of things that are unknown to us, right? How you end up at the end of the week, it totally matters on your self-care, okay? So that's why we're going to be doing weekly resets. And this one is important because, like I said, we're already halfway through the year. We only have 6 months left. It's going to be Christmas if you blink. For a lot of us, it's been a mix of ups and downs, wins and stress, but probably more stress than anything else. And if we don't pause before everything starts to happen, right, then we're going to be on autopilot for the rest of the year. And then we're going to have more of a possibility for burnout moments. We don't want burnout moments. No, thank you. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and get into this self-care audit. Okay. I want you to get your pen and paper. I want you to write these things down, and I want you to answer these questions honestly. You're the only person that's going to see them, but you need the honest answer from yourself to these questions. Okay. Write them down and think about these questions. All right, so there's 3 questions, and number 1 is, what is one habit that has been helping you feel more like yourself? Think back on the habits that you've had up until this point this year. What is one habit that helps you feel more like yourself? So number 2, the first one was easy, okay? Number 2, what is a habit or something that you do that has been draining you? I want you to really think about that. It could be a habit or a commitment. Think about it. Then number 3 should be easy once you get the answer to number 1 and 2 is, what is one small thing that I'm committed to do to help me get back to me? All right, because when I say get back to me, I mean get back to you, obviously, but it's like a sense of grounding, and grounding is just being present. You know what I'm saying? What is really focusing on what is really happening, what's not what you think is happening or what you're stressing about happening, what's really happening, right? I need you to do that. So answer those questions, right? And be honest with yourself, like I said, because that is going to help you to get a new focus on the rest of this year. You have to decide to focus on yourself, and this is going to help you do that. So once you get the answer to those 3 questions, then you can figure out what your focus is going to be for the rest of the year, but you're going to take it one day at a time, all right? I'm going to leave you with one practical tip to get into this mid-year audit for self-care today, all right? I want you to pick one thing to adjust this week, not 5, just one thing, all right? It could be the 10 minutes you spend scrolling before you go to sleep, right? You could turn that into 10 minutes of journaling, okay? Or you could add a healthy habit after you brush your teeth that you've been wanting to incorporate in your routine, but you just haven't stuck it in. Maybe you take your vitamins after you brush your teeth, or you eat a healthy breakfast after you brush your teeth, or you exercise after you brush your teeth, or you make up your bed. It's going to be different for everybody, but that is what I want you to focus on. Pick one thing to focus on doing differently, all right? Not 5. 1. The goal is for you to create space to show up better. Show up a better version of yourself. Work on yourself a little bit every day, right? And then you'll show up better as you go along. But we're going to focus on one thing. That's all it starts with, is one thing. And I don't want you to overthink it, all right? And if you have questions and you want more information about how to really, really get into a midweek self-care audit or other self-care topics, definitely feel free to DM me by Demeter Joe on Instagram, and we can talk about it there. This episode is sponsored by the Self-Care Revolution podcast. Oh, wait, that's actually me. No, but seriously, this is where self-care meets real life, okay? If you've been pouring into everyone else, this, my friend, is your sign to change that. All right, you can tap in weekly. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or you can go to selfcaremattersdaily.com and you can find the link there, okay? If something speaks to you, make sure you share it with a friend or leave us a review in the comments. So it's time for our positive spotlight segment of the weekly reset. All right, y'all know I'm going to leave y'all with something uplifting. That's just how I do. Anybody who ever used to watch my first show called What's Going On, you'll remember that I used to have segments where I used to promote a Black-owned business or something positive that, you know, we had going on somewhere in one of our communities, right? So that's what we're going to kind of bring back. And the first one that I'm going to bring back, or the first thing that I'm going to talk about in this segment, is the Podcast Summit 2025, okay? Now, if you're a podcaster, you definitely have had to heard of the Podcast Summit, all right? If you haven't, then I'll give you a little bit of information, and then you're going to have to go seek the rest of the information on your own and possibly attend Podcast Summit 2026, because they are doing it again. Now, how many people have heard of Social Proof Podcast, the Social Proof Podcast with David Shands and Donnie Wiggins? If you watch my channel, then you know that I have talked about them before. They are business coaches, okay? But they are not your regular business coaches, in my opinion. In my opinion, they are very authentic. They give good advice. And we actually, if you've been following them for the last 5 years or so, you actually can watch them put into practice the things that they are teaching as they were going along. So I think that's interesting as well. So what we're going to talk about today, though, is they just recently had another podcast summit. All right, I went in person to Podcast Summit 2024. It was an amazing event. They had wonderful vendors, and the networking was on point. All right, I feel like that is the highlight of what they're doing. It's not even about the speakers that they have or them being on stage, right? Because everybody wants to meet them. It's not about that though. It's about the other people who are attending the conference, because these are all people who are podcasters. So the amount of networking that could go on is crazy, right? There's hella interviews to be had. There's hella people to meet that you might be able to collaborate with that can help you get to the next level or whatever the case may be. Because if you watch the Social Proof podcast and you watch Donnie and you watch Dave, you will see a lot of other entrepreneurs that they all cross paths. Earn Your Leisure, okay? Nehemiah Davis, all right? The list goes on. They all kind of rocked in the same circle and they came up together, all right? So that's the whole point of the networking thing when you do go in person. Like, it's nothing like the going in person. Now, last year, they had a swag bag and it had like a Black owned product in it that I thought was really cool. It was a one of those water cups, but it was one that you can take around with you. I can't remember the name of it. The company name was Supplement, but I thought that was good that they had that. This year it looked like it was even better. Now, I attended virtually this year, but I will say that even though I attended virtually, I still got to network with other people who were also attending virtually. I got to see a lot of people who were there at Podcast Summit 2024 and were also at Podcast 2025. And I really just have a few things to say about it. If you were ever thinking about going, or if you have never heard of it before, all right, I had to write my notes down because it was really good. It was a well put together event. All right, it was not just the presenters presenting. It was sort of interactive in the way that they put this together, right? They did have people who were presenting, but there were conversations stuck in throughout, right? KevOnStage, and if you guys watch Beyond the Gates, you know Ernestine Morrison, who plays Shanice. She is the wife of, I think his name is Jay Morrison. Anyway, he's also, kind of been on Social Proof Network and things like that. But Ernestine Morrison is on Beyond the Gates, and she is Shanice, the nurse, and she was there to interview KevOnStage. KevOnStage was a great conversation because he talked about authenticity, and that is what a lot of people are missing these days. They want everything to be perfect and pristine, no mistakes and this and that, and he talked about just being yourself, just being authentic, and I thought that was good. Jason Lee also talked about authenticity. If you know who Jason Lee is, surprised to see him at Podcast Summit. I don't think he even really knew he was at Podcast Summit, but he knew he was coming in to talk to Pastor Jamal Bryant, all right? Because Pastor Jamal Bryant was there, all right? Of course, they can't come to do something in Atlanta and not have the pastor, come through. But he basically filmed his episode for his podcast there with Jason Lee. So when you see that episode, that was at Podcast Summit, all right? But he also talked about authenticity, okay? But my point is the value wasn't just in the information, okay? The information was good. Now another thing I do realize too is that everybody's coming on different levels. So the information that you resonate with may not be the same as somebody else's, right? I felt like all of the information was really good, but if you are just starting and, you might have really gotten a lot more out of it because you just didn't know anything or whatever, but the value just wasn't just in the information, all right? It was in the networking, meeting other podcasters and exchanging ideas. And then, I don't know, it's just something about that is what's the word? It's something about that makes the event that much greater. Yeah, it's great to see all those people talk, but like I said, last year when I went, I met so many different podcasters and people, that kind of open up doors to do other things. And so this year I met some people as well virtually. So I highly recommend. All right, but I'm going to give you some of my takeaways that I had. One of them obviously is be authentic. Be your authentic self. All right. Authenticity always wins. KevOnStage and Jason Lee said that. Donnie Wiggins made a point about who are you talking to? When you're doing your content, who are you talking to? Have clarity, all right, in your content. Know who you're talking to, all right? And then the other overall thing that I will say that I took away, because I'm not going to give any specific apps they suggested. There was also an AI portion that was very, very, very informative. All right, what I'm saying is I'm not giving away the information that was valuable inside the podcast summit, because you gotta go to a podcast summit. All right, and this is not a sponsored message, but a shout out to them. But you have to go. I'm just telling you some takeaways that don't involve the things that you should have been there in person for. Because listen, like I said, that AI piece was key. Okay. If you don't know, you need to get onto AI and start learning it. Even if you're not going to use it, you need to start learning it. All right. But anyway, the last thing is the only thing in your way is you. And that might sound cliche, but it's very true. All right. If you are stopping yourself from moving forward, you got to stop. All right. Most people don't act, and that is stopping yourself from moving forward. A lot of people think they're doing something. They think they're in the midst of trying to do something or doing something when they're actually just sitting there looking. They're still on the sidelines. You have to get off the sidelines and actually get in the game. It's not about being perfect. It's not about any of that. Like, think about your iPhone. The iPhone still isn't perfect, but think about how many versions we've had since the first iPhone came out. Okay. The first version of the iPhone, at this point, we would say it completely sucked, right? But like, look how many things they put out, regardless of whether it was perfect, and people still line up to buy it. So my point is, you have to act. Stop waiting. Stop procrastinating. Stop all that. All right. That is my takeaway. No matter what it is, whether it's self-care, whether it's diet, whether it's working out, whether it's a new hobby, a new job, a new skill, it doesn't matter. All right. Get off the sidelines. Actually act and do it. All right. So that's your reset for this week. Okay. If you're ready for like more real self-care, because I don't do like, I try to give you real life practical tips that you can put into place today to focus on yourself, and starting to focus on yourself is the key. It is the key. All right. But if you want more in-depth information, you want to know where the podcast episodes live, you want to check out our merch, you want to download the free self-care tracker that I have, you can download that and use it daily to help you incorporate more acts of self-care in your life on a daily basis. All right, you want to head over to selfcaremattersdaily.com, and all of what we have going on is over there. All right, I'm your girl Demita, and I'm going to see you guys in the next weekly reset. Thank you for watching the Self-Care Revolution podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Self-Care Revolution podcast. Oh, wait, that's actually me. No, but seriously, this is where self-care meets real life, okay? If you've been pouring into everyone else, this, my friend, is your sign to change that. All right, you can tap in weekly. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or you can go to selfcaremattersdaily.com and you can find the link there, okay? If something speaks to you, make sure you share it with a friend or leave us a review in the comments.